Hi everyone, this is Petra Lohmeyer from Nevelle with the year-end review, and if you are surprised that we're doing one, so am I. But as it happens, I went to the cinema the other day over the weekends, over the holidays, and I was sitting there and the commercials were playing, and then suddenly I saw a commercial that was unkind, and it was making fun of the whole win-win idea. And I was literally sitting there staring at the screen and thinking, you got to be kidding me. And initially, I was sitting there with an open mouth, but then I thought, oh, wow, this is actually a compliment. I had no idea that we were known that well. So, well, weird things have happened in my life, and I've been known in certain circles for quite a while for good reason, but it was never actually public, never to the public. So I was a little bit surprised by that. Maybe my friends across the pond have helped a little bit with this, but um, as I was sitting there and getting a little bit more excited about it, I thought, okay, maybe some people get a little bit discouraged. So I wanted to respond to this in a constructive way, as constructive as I can manage. Win-win has taken root. It has taken root everywhere. And every idea also finds people who want to derail it. It's out of envy or habitual negativity that they're just so used to that they can't see anything else, or fear to be left behind. And so we wanted to take some time to respond to some of the criticism, and more importantly, show the over 100 success stories we have seen alone on LinkedIn in the last 6 months. And we've posted them on at the time, and I'm just showing you at the end of this video a whole bunch of them to show you how much is out there just in this last 6 months. And yet in this year where you wouldn't have thought about it. But professional win-win with nature is a big business. It makes billions using win-win innovation. Sometimes it's just small inventions that make a huge difference for hundreds and thousands of lives in Africa, for example. And some small, large, or huge risk reduction for businesses and individuals. We have our prime example that we usually show and tell about, which is Suntory. But we've had so many more examples, and we will show them to you. And sometimes it's just issues that nature solved for us for free or very cheaply that would have otherwise cost you a lot of money, right? So let's take a look. First, what is win-win? And what are the alternatives to win-win? Because if you make fun of win-win, you must want the alternatives, right? So what is win-win? Well, win-win means somebody wins and the other person wins as well. So if I transact with you in some sort of way, then I win and you win. That is the concept. It's very simple. What are the alternatives? Well, win-lose is one alternative, and the other one is lose-lose. There really is nothing else. And you can have this in relationships, in businesses, or in countries, in the relationship between countries. So what is win-win in a relationship? Win-win in a relationship is a happy marriage. Why? Because both win something. It's not just the love together, which is a relative recent phenomenon, but it's all the economics in it, the finances in it. You have a flat together, you have an apartment together. You don't have to both pay for one, or you have a house together. You can both pay off the mortgage together, or you can share certain things. Like people are always fighting about who has to bring the garbage out. Well, if you're living alone, you are the one bringing the garbage out. You can't complain about somebody else doing it. So there are win-win situations in that, unless the marriage is, of course, not very happy, which comes to the win-lose scenario where one side controls or suffocates the other, usually, right? Or you have a lose-lose scenario where you have a divorce where both lose something. They will both lose out financially. It's not just that their economic possessions are being split, but they also then have to pay quite a bit for attorneys. Maybe there's depression, there's betrayal, loss of relationship potential, even for the initial winner. And we'll go back to that a little bit later. In business, you've got the same thing. Win-win is great service and raving fans. The service loves it because it has a lot of income, and raving fans love it too because they are quite happy to pay like Apple, for example, huge amounts of money for these phones because they think they are getting so much value. What do we have? Win-lose. Business overcharges the customer. Bad service or bad customer service. And lose-lose would be the same thing. Business overcharges, provides bad service or customer service, and customer leaves, which means that the business loses its revenue and the customer has to find another supplier and has some hassle there. In the end, that might be better for the customer, but at that point, when it happens, it's still a lose-lose. Countries, win-win, great trading agreement that benefits both sides and gives both sides something that they would not have if they had not had this agreement. Win-lose will be one country invades the other, or it controls or exploits the other. And lose-lose is a war where both sides lose at the end more than they had when they started the war, which is usually the case in wars, even when people think that they will win something with it. Practically all win-lose scenarios will fall short of the win-win scenario, and most will result in a lose-lose scenario in the long run. And we'll come back to that later. Compromise is also often a lose-lose situation, even if it is better than war or separation, because both parties give something that they really want, give up something that they really want in order to get to this compromise. And a lot of times there is actually a win-win situation there. You just have to be a little bit more creative, right? So let's take a look. That, by the way, that also means that if you do business with somebody who laughs about win-win or who thinks it's a stupid idea, they want you to lose in the relationship with them. Think about that. Now, why does win-lose almost always end up being a lose-lose situation? Well, let's use a metaphor. Have you ever seen the Red Nose Day presentations that Billy Crystal and Robin Williams did together? You know, these improvisations on stage? They always say yes and it is incredibly funny. You can actually take a look at it on YouTube. It's still out there. Now, watch it. And then imagine that one or the other had overpowered the other and spoken a monologue. Would have still have been so equally funny? Probably not. Because a lot of the fun came from the unexpected interplay between those people. Sure, one of them, if he had just overpowered the other, could have taken the stage and had the lamplight on himself, but it would still not have been as funny as both of them together, right? And that is the same thing in business, in relationships, and with nature. And that is what we are about. So for those who can actually perceive it in all contexts, and especially in a context of nature, take Elon Musk, for example. He did not go bankrupt when he built electric cars. He didn't make a little less money because he didn't use petrol for his cars. He became the richest man in the world. And that was the initial example. There are a lot of other examples as well. Solar has taken the world by storm. The world's fastest rising world power, China, banks on it. But somehow this all escaped all of those who are trying to discredit the win-win idea. So just as a summary for those who can see, we will show over 100 examples from our own LinkedIn posts, posts that we posted on from other people or our own posts in the last 6 months in the following slides. So some are fairly new developments and really exciting new developments, but win-win is not a new idea, even in the context with nature. Jane Goodall and Sadhguru are great examples for win-win situations. They just didn't call them that, but they have been practicing them over decades, and you can see those examples at the end. The whole idea of farming itself, say farming apples, for example, apple trees, is win-win. The farmer helps the little plant develop, it waters it and makes sure that it's fine, it feeds it, it guards it, and then when the tree is big, it gives the farmer apples. That's a win-win situation. Both parties win. Both have more afterwards than they had before because the farmer, of course, can sell those apples. That is the whole business model, right? That is a win-win situation. It's not something new. But As we have said, there are some really, really interesting developments. So let's dive in. I will go through these in a very, very fast succession because it is a lot of examples. It's more than 100, I think, even in this little presentation. So I will go through it really quickly, but of course it is a video here and this is on YouTube. So you can pause the video if you see something that you find really interesting. All those posts are on my LinkedIn page, Petra Lohme. You can see it on the posts themselves, but you can also see the links to the particular projects and the explanations of why that is a win-win project, what is win-win about it, which the original posters have posted there. So it is all there for you to see. You can just pause it where something is interesting to you, or just let it wash over you, and you will see there is a lot of win-win out there. Win-win with nature that is financially really valuable or saves us a lot of money or risk. Okay, so let's dive in. Oh, I'll just pick out a few of them as they rush past, and you can take a look. I obviously have them on the screen as well. So it starts with, well, this one was not 6 months ago, but everything else afterwards was. So this was a building somewhere in India, no pollution. There is another one with a commercial fishing industry who became an ocean farmer. So he was actually using his skills in order to farm kelp. Instead, we've got insects around here. We've got buildings that are fully planted full of plants and not as ugly as the other buildings are. We've got the world's largest sand battery. Before that, we had some people planting coral reefs, literally. We have ideas on where to put solar panels so that they don't stand in the fields. We've got, what is this? Singapore solved the garbage problem. Then, if after you die, you can become a coral reef. That's interesting too. Then, these two guys actually managed to solve the whole exhaust problem, which have been interesting for the car industry here, I would have thought. These are different examples in Africa that are really helpful for the population there. Apart from that whole Great Green Wall thing that they're actually building, that they've been building for quite a while already. Paris suburb running on algae-powered lights, which I thought was really interesting. So this is a cooker that cooks without electricity, which might actually be quite helpful if you have a blackout or something. Hydrogen was powering steel. I think that comes back later again. This is about microplastic. They took out microplastic out of the ocean. And of course, these are all businesses who are actually doing this, the whole ocean cleanup thing. That's a really, really young guy, and I think he's just finished it. I just saw a post as well that said that this was finished. Mushrooms that eat toxins, and she's building all kinds of, I can't remember what exactly she built out of this. Edible water orbs. Oh, and this is another way to get berry, which is also interesting, under a tree. And we've got another microplastic solution. This one was for beaches. Then we have electricity that is by waves, by the way of waves. Another plastic solution. I like this one. This is solar panels that are actually pretty and that don't destroy anything around. There was a post that said, well, if you think that it doesn't cost you anything with all these floods, well, think again. This is actually the steel bit one more time. Fossil-free steel. This is Japan using nature to make sure that they can deal with tsunamis and these kinds of things. We had another plastic solution then moss that absorbs carbon dioxide. Germany's sustainability solutions are there, but they actually have to go outside to Africa a lot of times in order to implement them. The other thing was an insecticide solution, which is called ducks, which they are doing in Japan apparently. Now we're seeing that the Eurozone is being outpaced. Let me just go back to that, what that was again. That was Spain's renewable energy sector secured 77 new projects in 2003 and outpaced Germany and France in the Eurozone. They grew by 3.2% by investing in renewable energies. This was something that Norwegians developed. Then what do we have here? Oh, nature-based architecture. That was an absolutely interesting post, and I think I'll find it after this again and will repost it, because they actually generate energy with their buildings. Then we've got different ways of grazing, where the grazers are actually helping the environment and you don't have to clear the area of trees. That was New York making good earth, soil from wasted food. Australia is using sunflowers. This is a way to make plant-based leather. This was a restoration project. Ecosia is actually a browser that if you use it and search through Ecosia as a browser, you will actually help planting trees. Well, that was a really interesting one as well. Let me go back to that one. That was before the bees and the water orbs that we have one more time. That was, let me see. Oh, right. Meet the startup turning greenhouse gas into food. Yes, you read right. Methane is a greenhouse gas 80 times more potent than CO2, and the Indian startup uses bacteria and fermentation to convert it into protein-rich biomass that can be used to feed plants and animals, taking climate change and food insecurity at the same time. Isn't that cool? I mean, it may not look like it looks on that plate, but the drones are reforesting Rio's hills. That is where technology comes in. Then what do we have? Oh, that was seaweed actually that grows incredibly fast and can be used for all kinds of things, not just to be eaten. Robots are used to clean solar panels, which is of course a business that is based on renewable energies. Then another post that shows how Africa is actually at the forefront of all of this, and how other countries have already made huge strides forward. We've got these mushrooms, we've got other plant-based materials that are used instead of leather bags. We've got Rolls-Royce and Intratec here actually, who are using hydrogen, and of course there are foreign companies that are coming here and doing this instead of that we came up with it. But hey, 10 emerging technologies. I haven't actually used all of this. Oh, strawberries. I thought that was really interesting. They have a restaurant where the strawberries come down. This was really interesting. China grew rice from seawater. And there is, in 2025, the world produced, let me go back to that. The world produced more electricity from clean energy than from coal. This is an historic first, and this was in 2025. And if you have some ESG funds in your portfolio of pension funds, you might have had a very interesting surprise at the end of this year, you know, which you wouldn't have thought with everybody talking about oil. Anyway, so plastic bags that vanish. We've got another plastic solution here. This one was really interesting. I'm going to come back to that. It sounds impossible but real, but 500 milliliter of salt water can actually provide 24/7 energy. Then this was in China, where they actually returned 32 million hectares of desert into green land. This is a way to help the cuttlefish in the Great Barrier Reef, and of course that is also an economy. Increasing rainfall and is being battled by parks. Then we've got the beautiful little sheep there, which are much more helpful than pesticides on the land. Here we've got houses made of seaweed. Isn't that cool? You would not have thought that. Shipping pallets using waste coconut shells. They are also probably free. And this excited young woman, take a look at the yarn in front of her. That is actually made from seaweed. All those white clothes that you will see in that post, they are all made from seaweed, and they are really interesting. Uruguay switched its grid to clean power in just 15 years. Why? Right? Then we've got the first public net plus building in the world, and that is actually here. It's a government building. We've got the weird situation here in Germany that government is much more at the forefront of environmentalism than is around here. Usually everywhere else you've got it the other way around, that the government is kind of behind. They may make some laws and stuff, but they are really not at the forefront, at least in their own buildings, in their own actions, at doing this and being innovative. Here it's the government. That tells you something about the companies. Anyway, tile turbine in Scotland hit 6.5 years of continuous operation. Then robots are used in the UK to actually map woodlands. That is really interesting. Let me go back to that one as well. The turbines was unplanned without unplanned maintenance visits. These robot dogs are helping to manage forests in the UK. That was also a very, very interesting post. Here we've got clean energy from coffee, believe it or not. Here you can grow dairy without cows, which is important there if they don't have any cows, or if cows cannot be used because of environmental or just animal rights concerns, right? So you can still have dairy and have the cows grazing down in the woodlands or in your land, so you don't have to use pesticides. You can still use the cows, right? This is a startup that builds data centers in space, and we'll come back to that because a few days later I heard something that was really, really exciting. It wasn't just that startup doing that all of a sudden. Farmers in Kenya use bees in order to keep the elephants away instead of shooting the elephants, which I'm sure that the elephants quite appreciate. Here in Japan, that is actually a very long-standing practice already that they are using in order to get timber without cutting down the trees, which is great, isn't it? Here, this is a example of the ocean becoming a power plant. Vattenfall is actually using its wind turbines in order to plant seaweed. The next one, pineapple leaves are being used for something. Can't remember what that was. This building, that was a really cool one. That one is also a really cool one where they greened it. So there are so many examples. Now this one is Forbes. This is a woman who uses tobacco plants in order to dye jeans. The beaver that built the dam, which is one of my favorite examples because it saved the taxpayers so much money. Then we've got, then we've got seaweed again, one more time. Finland heats cities using data center waste heat, which is also interesting. The country that made it possible, South Korea, now recycles 98% of food waste. And of course, recycling is also a big business. People don't think about this, but one of the biggest property magnates in the UK is actually into recycling as well, and he wouldn't do that if that wouldn't make quite a bit of money, right? He's also into diamonds and stuff. He's also into recycling, which is interesting, right? How do I know that? I was in one of his seminars. And anyway, mushrooms, hemp, and bamboo can replace nearly all textile and building materials while sequestering more carbon than trees ever could. So what is stopping us? That is a really interesting post, isn't it? That's a business idea. We've got Kenyan startups transforming plastic waste into paving bricks. That's another one, so you don't have the other stuff. And then we've got floating little islands there that are actually helping the river. And we've got that in quite a few different rivers. This is in Belgium, but I saw it somewhere else as well. This is the last examples that I had in this year. Formula One engineering could save the Great Barrier Reef. You actually have McLaren investing in this because McLaren is obviously very good at being fast, right? And finding ways of being faster and doing it. And the problem with coral reefs, of course, they are dying at the moment and they can't be replanted fast enough in order to make a difference. And they are the engine, in a way, in the ocean that feeds the rest of the ocean. So they're really, really important, not just for the fish there, not just for the tourists and the tourism trade looking at the fish there, but for everybody who actually benefits from these fish and all the bigger fish that eat the small fish and all the people who are, you know, eating the fish and so on and so forth. So McLaurin is of all companies is helping there. So you see that it is everywhere. Win-win situations are everywhere, and they are discovered by companies that you would never think would discover them and would be interested in them. And the last example was the cow. That was actually something that hold on, let me get to the cows here. Where is the cow? I had the cow somewhere. Here's my cow. So, Japanese researcher won a Nobel Prize after discovering that painting cows with zebra stripes could reduce biting flies by 50% and could help farmers rely on less insecticides. I mean, this is a very easy solution, isn't it? But it cuts down on insecticides everywhere when people do it. I mean, some of these solutions are so ridiculously easy, but you have to, of course, look for them first. I mean, that is probably how zebras came to be, right? Now, what I said before, this has been around for quite a long time. If you take a look at Calvary Calling, which is Sadhguru's initiative, he did this 20 years ago already when he saw that the soil was losing the nutritional value in India, and a lot of the farmers were literally killing themselves. Thousands of farmers were killing themselves because they could not feed their families anymore. So he helped them improve the soil. He helped to put in place a tree planting project as well to make sure that the soil wasn't blown away, and did all kinds of other things. And in the process, the soil recovered and the farmers could feed their families. And then he built all kinds of systems around this. So he helped people, he helped the soil, he helped the environment. It was all a win-win situation. That is not something new. The same thing, Jane Goodall. You may remember Diane Fossey, who was killed by the people because she wanted to protect the gorillas. Well, Jane Goodall managed to get the local people on board in order to save her chimps, and she did not only improve the lives of the chimps that she wanted to save, but also improve the life of the people and gave them jobs. So that is a win-win situation. It has existed for quite a while. People just didn't call it that. So, you know, you got to be able to see this. And the last win-win situations which I'm really excited about, you know, I talked about this startup with the data centers in orbit. Well, Elon Musk is also doing this, and while he is doing this, all of the quite a lot of the other billionaires have also jumped on board and are looking at data centers in space, which has all kinds of advantages, including a big economic potential, which could actually solve the US's debt problem without taking money from anybody else. If this actually comes to be, there may be other factors involved as well, but it also helps the environment because you don't have to cool down, use that much energy on Earth anymore in order to cool anything down. The sun is shining 24/7 in space, which means that they don't have to deal with, you know, weather conditions and night and day and so on and so forth. There's all kinds of advantages to it. And since they're looking at this, they have found all kinds of different advantages that they would never have had on Earth. So this is a win-win situation also. So there are so many win-win situations out there. If you're looking for them, you have to be able to see them. That is part of why we constructed the win-win course initially, in order to enable people to see them. But you also have to want to see them, of course. If you only look into the back, you know, rear view mirror in order to drive forward, as Tony Robbins says a lot of times, if you always look to the back and want to see what you used to do and what used to work in the early 20th century, maybe, in order to, you know, restore your economy or whatever, then you will never see the potential and the things that could actually be good, that could be created. You will live in a mindset of scarcity, which is what the early 20th century was about. It was a mindset of scarcity. If you take from other people, if you take from other nations in order to solve your own problems, that is a mindset of scarcity. people like Elon Musk, for example, never had a mindset of scarcity, and that is how they got so rich. I mean, take a look at Elon Musk. What did he do? Initially, he made his money with what is now PayPal, right? It is something that he created that wasn't there before. He didn't take something from somebody else, he created it. The same thing with Tesla. Yes, of course, now the customer are moving to him, but he didn't destroy VW first or something. He built something that was better, and that is why the customers moved to him. Same thing with SpaceX, the same thing with the data centers in space now. Take a look at all the other billionaires, or a lot of the other billionaires, the tech billionaires. Facebook, for example, you're still using it for free, and he found another way to make money on the back end. Right? That is also a win-win situation. So you may not be happy about how your data is being used and everything, but you do have some input in it. I mean, there is a lot of stock to be taken by thinking in an abundance model. And the first time I heard this is from Peter Diamandis, of course, who is on the board with Elon Musk, and who also founded Singularity University, who's also, I think, a founding member of SpaceX. And he talks about the abundance mindset a lot of times, and that is really the way forward if we don't want to destroy ourselves as a species. So I hope you liked what I've shown you, that it has given you some inspiration. If you are in industry somewhere, if you are in manufacturing industry, a lot of these things could potentially be used for you. These are just the last 6 months. We've been posting ideas for literally 7 years now. So if you just want to, you can go back in my LinkedIn post and take a look at what I've posted before. We've got different examples also on the website. We've got PDFs on the website. So as I said a little bit earlier in one of the earlier podcasts, we are actually moving on to a little bit of a different area now, because win-win is so prevalent. The only reason that I went back to this now and did this 2025 year-end review was because because of the reaction that I got, which was a little bit surprising, a little bit public. But of course, this was a good stimulus to show what is actually possible if you want to see it. And a lot of people, obviously, internationally, are already seeing it and are already moving in this direction, which is really exciting. We are now kind of folding up what we are doing here locally, not internationally. Not the idea. Win-win will always be there, has always been there even before us. It is being taken up by everybody now. We couldn't stop it now if we wanted to, and of course we don't want to. And we were also very clearly not the only ones thinking in those directions. We just kind of disseminated information. Now we are going into a different direction, not away from win-win. It's just we're looking more into a different part of win-win in a way, because we are still trying to build the WWAC, right? So since the locals here are not, let's just say, not quite in the mindset that would be conductive to our business here, we are locally shutting it down, going somewhere else and using a more flexible vehicle. But do feel free to still look at the website and still look at this. We will also keep continuing, probably continuing posting on examples on the webpage, and we will also give you a few ideas about AI, which were quite interesting. If we come across them and they are not actually patented or used by somebody else already. One of the I did promise that every time we do something like this, I take a look if I can find some nice idea for AI. And I took a look at all the ideas that I had taken down for AI, and I realized that maybe even without realizing it, I did have a lot of these ideas from the courses that I had taken. So I don't want to take them away from those courses. What I can really recommend is the AI Summit from Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, and I think it's still online somewhere. They've got some great ideas about things, including how to decide what to have for dinner, or where to go on the weekend and so forth, and some really interesting prompts for that. But one of the things that I did use it for lately was that Well, I wanted to know what somebody that I really respect would do in a certain situation where I really didn't know what um, I should be doing. So I put the situation and explained every single thing, every single step in it. I had previously asked a coach about it, but he basically just said, okay, just summarize it in one sentence. And that lost all the information that was actually interesting, that was actually keeping me stuck because I didn't know how to deal with it. And every little bit of it wasn't just a story, but what was actually something that was playing into the whole thing. And it wasn't just about me, it was about somebody else. So basically, at the end, what I did is I said, okay, what would person X, who is really, really skilled in this, advise me if I was one of the highest paying clients? And I put this into ChatGPT and I got a really, really helpful response. So that is one thing you can do, and you don't have to just do it with one person. You can say, okay, if so and so, say, a certain business person, a certain coach, maybe that a certain other business person, somebody from an historical context, if those four would have a mastermind together and were confronted with the situation, and I would come to them and say, okay, what would you do? What would they advise me? Done that as well. And I got a very, very interesting concept that doesn't mean that it will work in the real world, but it can give you a really interesting perspective when you don't know which way you're supposed to be going next. And of course, if you use something like ChatGPT, it will have information from the internet and from other people, of course, that you don't have. I mean, you could do research forever and you wouldn't have access to the things that these machines have access to. So I found some really interesting things. And I've been moving and doing different things a lot of times in my life due to external circumstances, and other people will have to do the same thing in future, even those who were very stable to begin with, like to be stable, but it just kind of didn't work out that way. And I know how difficult it was before the internet to actually manage that and to plan that, to figure out what to do. Even after the internet, I realized how many things you a lot of times don't think about. And now I just put it into ChatGPT and say, okay, I want to do this next. What would you suggest? It comes up with like 40% of things that I would never have thought of. So this is a really interesting thing to do as well. So I wish you a very, very blessed and beautiful new year with a lot of win-win situations that you would never have thought of. You can ask ChatGPT as well. It knows what win-win situations are. And I hope that we all will have a very beautiful new year. And of course, we've got the same wishes. Well, most of us have the same wishes all over the world to have peace, to have joy for everyone. And we wish that there is going to be peace and joy and love for all humanity, but also for all other life involved. And that is what we always stood for at Nevelle. And I wish you that, and I wish it to everybody you care for. All right. Have a lovely new year and see you in the next year.